This video is brought to you by Imprint. Today, Israel confirms that it kills Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, the EU agrees to a new strategy for migrant asylum seekers, and Australia reintroduces jailing 10-year-olds. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Friday the 18th of October 2024. We start today with the news that the Israeli Defense Forces have successfully killed the leader of Hamas in a shootout yesterday afternoon. Late on Thursday afternoon, the Israeli military confirmed in a post on Twitter that Sinwar was dead by saying mass murderer Yahya Sinwar, who was responsible for the massacre and atrocities of October the 7th, was killed today by IDF soldiers. Additionally, sources suggest that he had been killed during an Israeli operation in the Tal el-Sultan region of southern Gaza. Israeli media added that the operation was a so-called routine raid and that it caught Sinwar by chance. Now, this isn't the first major figure that Hamas has lost in recent months. According to Israel, it was only back on the 13th of July that Mohammed Daif, the head of Hamas's armed wing, was killed. A few weeks later, on the 31st of July, Israel also took responsibility for the death of Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas. As a result of Haniyeh's death, Sinwar was selected to take over as leader, a role he carried out in hiding in Gaza. He ruled with an iron grip, suppressing dissent and instilling fear. In fact, to some, he was known as the Butcher of Khan Yunis for his approach to Palestinians suspected of collaborating with Israel. Among some Palestinians, though, he gained respect for standing up to Israel. When it came to the war, though, Sinwar held indirect negotiations with Israel to try and end the war. His primary aim in these negotiations was to secure the release of Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. While Sinwar's death has been celebrated in Israel, especially by the army's chief spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, it only threatens to further throw Hamas into disarray. Having lost yet another senior figure, regaining control of the organization will likely prove difficult for the next leader. Right now, it looks probable that Sinwar's younger brother Mohammed will take command, and will continue the strategy of low-level insurgent resistance to Israel. Rebuilding Hamas's command, though, will be difficult. Over in Israel, though, Netanyahu will likely feel emboldened by the current situation. Immediately following the death of Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah, Netanyahu saw an improvement in the polls, and already there are reports that celebrations took place in Jerusalem on Thursday night. We'll keep you updated on this story as it develops through next week. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing on Monday. Plus, if you want to support the channel like M Miles, then consider joining the TLDR Daily Membership Program for just $1.99. On Thursday's EU summit, leaders agreed to use all their leverage to speed up returns of migrants illegally entering the bloc, and asked the European Commission to urgently draft a new asylum law. Immigration continues to be a highly sensitive topic for the bloc. It's fueled the rise of the far right in multiple member states, who have pushed for tougher migration laws. But despite the increasing salience of the topic, migrants who arrived via irregular routes into Europe last year were a third of the 1 million seen during the crisis in 2015, and numbers fell further this year. Nevertheless, out of 484,000 non-EU citizens ordered to leave the EU last year, only 20% returned home. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the Commission was working on a new law that will increase repatriation rates. The leaders also U-turned on a decision to support Poland in its plan to temporarily suspend accepting asylum applications from migrants pushed across the country's eastern border by Belarus and Russia. A similar challenge faced by Finland this July, when Helsinki also suspended accepting asylum applications on its border with Russia. Finally, EU leaders also discussed offshoring asylum seekers and setting up return hubs in third countries outside the EU. At these hubs, migrants whose EU asylum bids were refused could await deportation to their home country. The right-wing government of Italy has already set up such a return hub in Albania, and the conservative Dutch government is considering sending rejected African asylum seekers to Uganda. Meanwhile, Denmark and Austria have agreements with Kosovo to send migrant prisoners to Kosovan prisons. But not everyone is too keen on offshoring asylum seekers to third countries. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz stated that asylum processing hubs outside the EU could only handle a small fraction of requests, and emphasized that a law on fast returns would be more beneficial. Meanwhile, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez called migration a positive force essential for boosting birth rates and supporting welfare states among the EU. Moving to Australia now, where children as young as 10 will soon be able to be sent to prison in the Northern Territory. Now, recently, Australian states have been under pressure from the UN to raise the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 14. The only territory so far to, at least partly, bow to this pressure has been the Northern Territory, which recently raised the age of criminal responsibility to 12. However, following the landslide victory of the Country Liberal Party in the Northern Territory general election earlier in the year, the government set itself a new priority to reduce youth crime rates. As part of this, the Country Liberal Party has argued that moving the age of criminal responsibility down to 10 will actually protect children by diverting them away from future crime. This, though, has been disputed by doctors, human rights groups, and Indigenous groups, who claim that not only will the new law not reduce crime, but it will actually disproportionately affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. Already, the Northern Territory sends around 11 times more children to jail than other parts of the country, and almost all of them are Aboriginal. The US has charged a former Indian intelligence officer for allegedly directing a foiled plot to murder a dual US-Canadian citizen, Sikh Separatist leader and Indian critic in New York City. The US case is not the only instance of India's recent targeting of Sikh separatists, labelled as terrorists, on foreign soil. Canada on Monday expelled Indian diplomats, linking them to the 2023 murder of another Sikh separatist leader on Canadian soil, which, according to the US Justice Department, was also an associate to the Sikh leader from New York. India also ordered the expulsion of Canadian diplomats and denied Canada's allegations. The accusations have tested Washington and Ottawa's relations with India, often viewed by the West as a counterbalance to China. In the final uplifting story today, we discuss the development of new smart insulin. It's been reported recently that scientists have designed a new form of insulin that's able to switch itself on and off based on glucose levels in the blood. Now, for people with diabetes, controlling blood sugar levels is a difficult and often painful task, often requiring multiple insulin injections per day. Whilst there have been developments in technology that helps to manage insulin levels, such as insulin pumps, in all of these cases, once the insulin is in, there is no way to control it. However, this new smart insulin can be injected into the bloodstream and will reduce high blood sugar concentrations, while also preventing them from dropping too low. Currently, it's only been tested in animals, but if this proves to be successful in humans, it could be a major game changer for people with diabetes, and help to prevent excess insulin injections.
Fans of TLDR like you care about understanding the world around them. That's where today's sponsor Imprint comes into play. If you care about building a life of learning, then Imprint is the app for you. It's a new way to learn that turns your phone from an attention-sucking device to a tool for growth. You may have heard this before, but unless you've used the app, you likely haven't experienced something like this. That's because Imprint is beautifully illustrated and animated, creating a highly visual, bite-sized and interactive learning experience. It's the perfect antidote to a world where social media tries to keep us mindlessly dopamine scrolling day in and day out. Their library includes courses on topics like psychology, history, philosophy, finance, productivity, and many more, and quick reads you can consume in a single sitting. Since we last spoke to you about Imprint in September, I've done the philosophy course and am focusing on their course on the science of happiness. People study how to get in shape, how to eat right, and how to advance in their career. Understanding how humans are wired to be happy has been an interesting path to go down that I highly recommend to all of you. So make yourself feel better about your screen time, build a real habit of learning every day, and join the millions of people using Imprint. Plus, if you use the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen, the first 200 people will get 20% off an annual plan. Plus, they'll know that you came from us.